about to leave, already packing. Come with me, I'm not really asking. We'll get away to a place where we don't know. About to see the world in action, what we can be, life with no distractions. We'll get away, this is what we waited for. Take my hand, we'll make it somehow. We can't miss out. I'm done living life with the lights out. Die with my own doubts. Be free with me. Let's be free with Not looking back, eyes on the freeway, Bonnie and Clyde, a classic cliche. We're on the run, this is what we waited for. Take my hand, we'll make it somehow. We can't miss out. I'm done living life with the lights out. Die with my own doubts. Be free.
Good evening, everybody. John here from Tutor to You. Welcome you along to another one of our live streams. Oh, we've got an extra visitor there, Penny.
Just to show it's live.
Just to show that it's live. Good evening to everybody who is joining us live. And welcome to this first in our series of 3 sessions that we're going to do, where we're looking at topics that we know are going to appear on the upcoming exams because the awarding body said so as part of their advanced information packages that they've published on their websites. If you haven't seen them, do have a look at them on your awarding body's websites. And if you want some real good insight, I know we've got some brilliant videos from Tutor to You on just that stuff. Am I right, Jeff?
Indeed, and we're going to be adding to them in the weeks to come. So we're going to focus on the advanced notice in terms of our YouTube sort of content videos there, John.
Brilliant stuff. Wonderful. All right, and tonight, as we say, we're going to concentrate on one of those topics, which is the demand side policies part of macroeconomics, thinking about fiscal and monetary policy. So massive welcome to those of you who are with us live. Don't forget, we would love to know your thoughts and responses to our questions. We've got 30 minutes or so of quick fire activities for you, and we would love to see your responses in the chat window, please. If you're watching us on replay, of course, you can pause the video at any point and take a little bit longer over the questions that we've got. So we've got Jeff. Jeff's with us in the middle of the screen. Evening, Jeff. And then we've got Penny as well. Evening to both of you.
Right.
So I think it's time to get started. Shall we get cracking, gents and ladies?
Yeah, good to go. Thanks, John.
Let's go. Okay, here we go.
So we're going to start with some multiple choice questions. Just to give you a bit of a heads up here, a bit of a clue. The answer to each of these questions is either A, B, C, or D. I like to be helpful in terms of setting these things up. Here's our first question. A fall in consumer and business confidence results in recession. To move the economy out of the recession, what would be an example there of an expansionary fiscal policy? So you've had a deterioration in animal spirits. Which of those policies, A, B, C, or D, would be the most likely expansionary fiscal policy to help lift an economy out of recession? We're looking in the chat window for people to give some answers, and we'll give a shout out to people who get the right answer. So let's see what's coming through. Is it expansion of the money supply? Is it increasing in direct taxes but a fall in indirect taxes? Increase in the real value of teacher salaries, or depreciation of the exchange rate? We've got a little bit of difference of opinion. Somebody's saying D, a couple of people saying D and A. I guess most people here are saying C. So let's check the answer, please, John. And the answer is indeed C. A and D are expansionary, but of course the expansion of the money supply and the exchange rate is monetary policy, not fiscal policy. B, well, a reduction in indirect taxes would be expansionary, but higher income taxes contractionary. Okay, question number 2. Here's the definition question. The definition of national debt is which of the following? Have a go, please, at question number 2. 4 different definitions there. Which of those is the best definition of a country's national debt? What do we think? A few people already starting to bring an answer in. Somebody said B, borrowings of firms, individuals, and the government. One of the people saying D, the sum of the debt of all citizens of a country living in the country or overseas. Joe says C, Matthew says C, Seb says C, Nate says C, Jade said C. Most of us seem to think it's C. Let's check the answer. And it is indeed C. Now, really key exam point. You need to know the difference between deficit and debt. Deficit, of course, is this year's budget deficit. The deficit, the government spending more than it's receiving in tax. The debt is the accumulated debt that's yet to be repaid. And of course, that involves some deficits from past years. The national debt in the UK went above 100% of GDP for the first time, I think, in a while in 2021. Question 3 is on its way now. What is the main purpose, if you like, of using a zero interest rate policy? Interesting question. So I think you've got 4 options there. Look for the likeliest purpose. It's not the only purpose. I think on this question, have I got this one? What's the purpose of using a zero interest rate policy? Interesting question. You've got 4 options there. Think about countries that have moved close to the lower bound of interest rates. They've cut interest rates to 0. What do we think? James thinks it's to achieve full employment. Mario thinks it's to bring about a currency depreciation. 1 or 2 people thinking it's to close the inflationary gap. Okay, some good answers coming through. Anne says C. Isabel says C. Few people saying B. Sophie says B, and Matthew says B. Let's look at the answer, John. The answer is B. That is a likely purpose. Let me just take you through it. Clearly, if you move interest rates close to 0 in nominal terms, then if you've studied exchange rates, hopefully revising that, low interest rates may well cause an outflow of hot money from the banking system of a country, particularly if your interest rates are very low relative to other countries. So low interest rates causes an outflow of hot money. People are selling that currency in the markets. And in theory, other things being the same, that's going to drive the currency down. So things like negative interest rate policies and zero interest rate policies, or ZIRP, are often designed to bring about a currency depreciation. Of course, if the currency depreciates, that can stimulate demand, particularly through the export sector. Okay, question 4 coming up. Loads of people, by the way, with us live tonight. It's fantastic to see you answering in chat. We really do appreciate it. Here's another question. Public sector spending as a share of GDP in the UK in 2020 was 52%. Wow. A country with a high public sector spending to GDP percentage is likely to be what? Again, there's your 4 options. So high level of debt, public sector spending, government spending, 52% of GDP. A country with a high public sector spending relative to GDP is likely to be what? Some answers coming through. Harry has gone for D. Reese thinks it's D as well. Any more answers coming through? A few people saying A. Tanvir's gone for D. Okay, Bavia's gone for D. Nate's gone for D. And let's have a look at the answer. It is indeed D. Of course, it doesn't have to be a high tax burden, but normally over time, if this percentage of share of government spending goes up, then for a given level of borrowing, you have to raise more tax. But interestingly, just contextually, very interesting at the moment, government spending has gone up. Clearly, 2020, a lot of that was pandemic related, things like the furlough scheme and the increase in universal credit and what have you. The tax burden didn't go up as much, but it's likely to go up this year to about 37-38% of GDP. National insurance going up, corporation tax going up, income tax allowances frozen. So yes, the tax burden is at its highest level now for something like 50, 60 years going forward. I think we have one more question, and here it is. This is a question on exchange rates, and I think this is a tough one. So if you get this right, fantastic, well done. Most of the Caribbean islands, Aruba, Bahamas, Barbados, and Bermuda, that would be a tough World Cup qualifying group, wouldn't it? Anyway, most of the Caribbean islands operate exchange rate policies that peg their currency to the US dollar. They do indeed. They are good examples of fixed exchange rates. What is a possible advantage of this currency system? So you're looking for an advantage of fixed exchange rates. Barbados, Bahamas, Bermuda, they've all operated essentially a currency peg anchored to the US dollar. What do we think is a possible advantage? If you get this right, you are a seriously good economist. What do we think? Mario thinks it's B. Bezo thinks A. It's a deflationary policy and keeps employment rates high. Matthew thinks it's B. Just reading any more. It's fantastic, by the way. If you put answers in chat, we are so appreciative of this. Few people thinking it's A. Reese thinks it's A. Fixed exchange rate deflationary policy keeps employment high. It's not A. And now we're getting more people coming in. Joe says it's B. And indeed, the right answer is B. Of course, these countries are highly tourism dependent, and they want tourists to come and spend their dollars because they know that the guarantee is that the dollars that come in are worth what the dollar's worth. And often, for example, that's not the case if you have a floating volatile exchange rate. There's lots of potential advantages of fixed exchange rates. One is pretty good news for tourism dependent countries. Both tourist providers and also tourists themselves, they know what it's going to cost when it comes to their holidays. Some fantastic answers there. Over to Penny.
Thank you very much, Jeff. And yes, great answers coming in from everybody. Well done. If you managed to get all of those right, I think you're doing extremely well. And that should set you up nicely for the rest of the questions to come in this session. So what we're going to be doing now is a great opportunity for you to take your knowledge of demand side policies and apply it to real world economics for some really all important marks from context or for application. So the connection spinner is going to ask you to give an example of one of these 6 options. Have a look through them, see which of those, what would you like it to be? We're going to spin the wheel now and see which of those 6 the spinner stops on. And I'm going to ask you for an example of, there you go, automatic stabilizers when an economy is expanding. Okay, so you've got an expanding economy. Can you give me an example of how what automatic stabilizers would be, or how they would work when the economy is expanding? And as soon as you've got an idea, type it into the chat window, please. I'll give a moment because I know there's a slight delay. A, to give you a bit of time to think about this, and B, because we have a slight delay sometimes for the chat window to come through. So that gives you some thinking time. An example of automatic stabilizers when an economy is expanding.
Yeah, Penny, this is a key one, isn't it? Because not every student looks at automatic stabilizers, so it'll be interesting to see.
That's right. Absolutely. We'll get some ideas coming through, but maybe at the end we'll just say a quick word about what they are, what it means. Yeah. Okay, well done, Joe. First one with an answer here. Increase in welfare benefits when unemployment is high. Yep, absolutely. Well done, Joe. Thank you for coming in with the first one. Anyone got another example to add? That's a good one, but there's more that you could add to that.
I think Reese went on the up. So Reese said decreasing government spending on
Okay,
welfare.
decreasing government spending on welfare payments. Good stuff. Okay, good. So there's a bit of some different ideas coming through here. Let's put up the examples that we have for you. Okay, so remember we're talking about an economy expanding. That's when we've got a high level of GDP growth. We've maybe, if you're thinking about the trade cycle or the economic cycle, we're in the top stage of that. And at that stage, we would expect tax revenues to increase because people will be earning more people will be employed. So income tax is increasing. Maybe people are going out and spending more, so there's more VAT. And of course, companies should be making more profits and so earning more corporation tax. And then the other side of this is the other side of the fiscal policy. We're thinking about government spending on benefits. And of course, when an economy is expanding, that should mean that the government doesn't have to spend as much on welfare benefits. So the injection that comes from government spending is less. The withdrawal or the leakage that's taken from tax revenues is greater. And that's what automatic stabilizers are all about. They're about that fiscal policy that either injects more or less through spending or withdraws more or less through taxation at different stages of the economic cycle. So well done. Thank you for your answers on that. Let's have another go at this. Now you've got the idea for it. Let's spin the wheel again. What will it come to this time? We are looking for... Okay, so this time we're onto monetary policy. So still expansionary, but we're looking for a monetary policy measure that would be expansionary. Can you give me an example of a monetary policy change or move that could help to expand the economy? Okay. So we've got a couple of examples coming through about interest rates, some about quantitative easing. Very good. Let's have a look at the examples that we've got for you. Absolutely. There you go. A fall in interest rates. Lots of you saying lower interest rates, cutting interest rates. Well done, those who said that. Because, of course, that would increase consumer borrowing, maybe increase business investment as well. So you've got an outward shift of AD because of those. And then the use of QE to expand the money supply. So lots of you said you would use quantitative easing. Not so many. Muazzam, I can see, said increases money supply. Good. Great. So good ideas coming through there. Thank you very much. One more go at this. Let's spin it one more time and see what it comes to this time.
Are you in charge of the spinner, Penny? Are you doing that? Or?
Oh, it's random, Jeff. It's completely random. Oh, and this time, okay, this time it's come to countries that have used QE. Now, this is a really good test of your knowledge of context, isn't it? So let's see if you can think of, can you name 2 or 3 countries that have used QE, quantitative easing?
Yeah, significant use of QE as part of their monetary policy. This is good application.
Absolutely. Yes. Okay, so the first suggestions that are coming through are the UK. Yep, good. We've got some people suggesting USA with the Federal Reserve. Well done, Kish. Yes, other than the UK, I think, is what we want to see. Okay, lots of suggestions coming through. You've got Japan now showing up there. Japan maybe. Yes, Japan definitely. We've got Switzerland being thrown into the mix as well. Good. Let's have a look at the suggestions we have for you. There you go. So we've got the USA, we've got Japan, the Eurozone. I don't think anybody suggested Eurozone or the ECB, did they? Sweden, I know somebody suggested that. I've seen Switzerland coming through a few more times. Good, well done. So if you came up with 2 or 3 of those.
Japan, Sweden, and Switzerland have gone for negative interest rates as well as QE.
As well, absolutely, yes. So, and okay, here's a bonus point. Can anyone tell me, it's quite difficult for all of these central banks to find the data for exactly how much they have injected into their economies through QE. But can anyone, let's keep it simple here and go for just the UK. So switch back to the UK. Can anyone give me the amount that the UK has injected through quantitative easing to date?
It's a great
checking this on the Bank of England's Bank of England website tells you this.
Oh,
but don't cheat and have a look. Oh, well done. 895 billion pounds. Well done. There you go. Correct answers coming through. Excellent. Well done. So on that note, we'll leave on a high and hand back to Jeff for some bubble quiz.
Wow, Muazzam was straight in with 895 billion.
Absolutely.
Incredible. Joe short out said 875. Joe, you're 20 billion down. Unfortunately, I think you need to check your figures there. Staggering. It's about 13%, actually, cumulatively. Massive amount of GDP, isn't it? Sorry, the GDP is about 2 trillion. It's about 35-40% of GDP. We love a bubble quiz on our GTG live sessions. Here we go. So we're going to give you a question, and here's the first question: which of the following is an example of government current spending? And you have to decide how many of those are correct. Is it 1, 2, 3, or 4, or none of them? So in chat, if you think you know the answers, super confident, just type in the letters that you think are correct. And obviously, if you think none of them correct, just leave it blank, in which case the chat window will be blank. Which of those are examples of current spending by government? Current spending. So Dynamic Fork 57 thinks 2, but which 2? Which 2? Mario says A. He's confident about A. Fatima says B and D. She thinks those are current spending. Tom Johnson says B, C, D. Sounds a bit like my A-levels when I was younger. Joe says B, C, D. Let's look at the answer, John. It is B, C, D. Well done. Those are current spending. Current spending is recurring spending each week, each month. You know, the pay of doctors and nurses, the spending on medicines, spending on people repairing potholes. Of course, that's maintaining roads, not building roads. Whereas A is capital spending, the construction of a new school. Many of you might be at schools where there has been some new capital spend, and that would count as government capital spending. So well done. B, C, D is the right answer on that one. Let's check out number 2. We've got quite a few of these. Love this question. Which of the following taxes are estimated in the UK to be regressive? Fabulous question. Which of these 4 are estimated to be regressive? Gambling taxes, cigarette duty, council tax, inheritance tax. What do we reckon for number 2? Answers coming through. Alia says A and B. Parry says A and B. Evan says A and B. Bezo says B and C. Mario says A, B, and C. Interesting. I'll give a shout out to people who are putting their answers in. Parry says A, B, C. Seb says B and C. Gambling taxes. Did I tell you, by the way, that I used to have 2 kids in my class, both called William Hill? Now, what were the odds on that? Here's the answer coming through. Thank you, John. Thanks for the sound effects. Here's the answer coming through. Which of those are regressive? Can we look at the answer, please, John? Working hard. There we go. It's too busy on these sound effects. Gambling taxes are regressive. Cigarette duty, I think most people understand that as regressive. By the way, can somebody just type into chat a top definition, please, of what we understand by a regressive tax? So give me a quick example, a quick definition, please, of what your understanding is of a regressive tax. Gambling taxes are, cigarette duty is, and council tax also is. Oh yeah, brilliant. Army Boy says those on low incomes are worse off. Bezo has an even better definition, a tax that hits the percentage income of poorer families harder. That's a great one. So in other words, regressive tax hits relatively low income families by a greater percentage. And council tax actually is quite regressive, particularly if you're a low income household in an expensive housing area. It's remarkably regressive. So the council tax, you know, the tax you pay is based on housing value. It's not based on income. So if you're in a relatively modest house, let's say, but in a very expensive area, you could be paying a lot of council tax, but being on a low income. That's why council tax is regressive. And as Bezo says, council tax is based on estimations of house prices in the 80s, which is actually true. Although Bezo doesn't say whether that's the 1980s or the 1880s, but we'll check that out later. Inheritance tax is progressive. It is progressive rather than regressive. One more bubble quiz. You guys are so good at bubble quizzes. This is tough. No questions. This is tough. The effectiveness of fiscal automatic stabilizers, we just talked about, depends on which of the following factors. So Penny in the quiz before identified examples of automatic stabilizers, but the effectiveness of fiscal automatic stabilizers depends on which of the following: size of the government sector, the level of interest rates set by the Bank of England, the generosity of the welfare system, and the progressivity of the income tax system. Sochi has gone for A, C, and D. Bezo ACD, Reese ABCD. He thinks all of those factors affect the size of the automatic stabilizers. Tim's gone for C and D. Ali has gone for C and D. Jade's gone for C and D, and Mario ACD. Let's check the answers, please. It is ACD. Wow, look, I'm seriously impressed. Can we take the exam tomorrow, please? These are great answers. Yes, the size of the government, because of course that's going to determine the extent, the scope of welfare, for example, the generosity of the welfare system. What's the level of benefits relative to incomes? You see, if incomes go down, benefits might then fill the void a little bit in terms of the generosity, and also progressivity, because when incomes rise, the government tends to take more in tax, particularly as people move into those higher percentage tax bands. Progressive system. But of course, in a recession, fewer people pay the top rate of tax. So therefore, the government takes less in tax revenues. Great stuff on those. Do we have one more? I don't think we do. Is that? No, we've got one more. One more. Okay. Oh, yeah. An even tougher question. The effectiveness of an expansionary fiscal policy, such as a cut in income tax, is limited by which of the following? Okay, this is one for the fiscal policy aficionados. So which of those factors will limit the expansionary effect of fiscal policy? The government cutting income tax, for example, to try and stimulate demand. Which of those is going to limit the positive effect on AD? Ali goes for BCD. Bezzy goes BCD. Matthew goes BCD. Josh says no, it's just C and D. One or two other answers coming in. Yusuf goes for C and D. Seb, C and D. Let's look at the answers, please. It's BCD. BCD. So, money supply, clearly, that's monetary policy, isn't it? It's not going to affect it. Yes, let's look at C and D quickly. Expectations that taxes will rise. Yes, that must be a factor. People think taxes are going to go up in the future. They may well save a bit more now. And crucially, D is very important. If you give a tax cut to people, what is their marginal propensity to save? Is it high? In which case they won't spend a tax cut, or is it low, in which case they're likely to spend it. Fiscal crowding out, of course, is the idea that an expansionary fiscal policy could lead to higher interest rates, for example, in the bond market, and it could crowd out the expansionary effect. Do please have a look at crowding out. It's an important idea to understand for your macroeconomics. Fantastic answers. Fantastic answers. Let's move on to the next one. We're going to crack the code, I think, Penny, next time.
Absolutely. Yes. So we've got a bit more specific use of your knowledge of context here. This time we're focusing on the UK economy because, as I'm sure you know, your awareness of what's going on in the UK economy is really important. So they've got 6 government departments here, and I would like you to think about them in terms of fiscal policy, in terms of the proportion of government spending that those departments represented for 1919 to 20. So bear in mind that's pre-pandemic, more kind of typical days of government spending. The last couple of years have obviously been completely atypical. So all you have to do is try and put A, B, C, D, E, and F in the order of their proportion of the total government spending, with the largest first. Okay, so Parry has immediately come in with a suggestion. Well done. Let's see what else others are suggesting. So we've got a suggestion of defence being highest, then of health being highest. Seb and Yusuf. Okay, there's quite a few people going for health as the highest one, but another couple also going for defence. What do we think is the smallest? There's all sorts of different ideas of what would be the lowest. Jeff, are you having a go at this in the background?
Well,
as well?
I am. You've split up ENF, haven't you? Social Security on pensions, the state pension, and Social Security, work age and children, things like universal credit.
That's a good point, isn't it?
But by the way, there's no correct answers just yet.
Oh! I think the software only is like the code appears if somebody cracks it.
Exactly right, Jeff. Exactly right.
So we could be here all night.
For a while.
We could be here all night.
Gosh, John, you've got to give me a clue. I think the first one is probably going to be pensions, isn't it? No?
Because they've been split up, Jeff, it is not, no.
Oh, okay.
It will start with health.
I think, yes, it'd be fair to say A good many people have gone for C as the largest one, and that is correct, as you say, John, with that splitting of the two areas of social security. They're coming through so fast now that I'm finding it difficult to pick out.
Well, John, are you watching
exactly
these cases come in?
Anyone who's got it spot on. John, should we have a look at the solution?
I think we should. I think we will. Let's have a look.
Did somebody get it? Did somebody get it?
Did any of you get that spot on?
People came really close. Really close. There's a few people typing it in now, having seen the answer. That's not.
Yes, well done. But there you go. Yes.
There we
Health
go.
on its own is the highest level. As we have been saying, if you add the two social securities together, it becomes the highest area. And of course, what you should bear in mind is that these are a proportion of total government spending. It's not a proportion of GDP.
Yeah.
Okay, but well done if you got close to that. Let's go on now back to Jeff to have a look at some balancing items.
Yeah, my final activity this afternoon is called On Balance. And here we go. So again, if you type in answers in chat, it's fantastic to see them. Very, very high quality activity today. Give me an advantage and a disadvantage of increasing monetary policy interest rates. Well, let's think about the advantages first of all. Can we post into chat an advantage for the UK economy in the current context, let's say, the current context of increasing interest rates? We know they've gone up from 0.1 to 0.5, 0.25, now 0.5%. Most commentators thinking they'll rise to at least 1.5%, possibly 2% by the end of the year. Type in an advantage, first of all, of increasing interest rates. Harry goes for imports cheaper, possibly through the exchange rate effect. Tom says it helps to control inflation or reduce inflationary pressure is a good one. Okay, can lower the inflation rate, mitigating the rising cost of living. Great point there from Maurice in terms of addressing this cost of living crisis. Wealth effect from Fatima, higher spending but lowest consumption for those lower households. Bezos says it attracts hot money flows into the economy from foreign investors, which can cause the exchange rate to appreciate. Some good stuff here. Let's see what we decided to choose. There's lots of things you could talk about. I looked at a couple of things. One, actually both of these, I don't think they were mentioned actually. One, it increases the real return for savers. You see, for the last 10, 15 years, if you're a saver, the nominal rate of interest on your savings has been below inflation. And so savers have suffered quite significant real income reductions. So higher interest rates will be good news for millions of savers. And another key one is to link interest rates to wealth and asset prices, which some people actually did mention in their answers. So higher interest rates, in theory, helps to moderate the current pace of increase in house prices. I think they went up by something like 10, 11% last year, and obviously big issues to do with affordability and the cost of buying and renting has gone up. Back to you on the chat. Can you throw in, please, a disadvantage, a drawback, an economic downside of increasing interest rates? What are we going for? AK says increased interest rates, MEC theory, hence a decrease in investment. Great point. So higher interest rates could bring down fall in planned investment through the marginal efficiency of capital. Reduces the money supply, slower growth, reduced economic growth as people spend less. Harry says exports less competitive. That's correct, Harry. I think you'd work that through the exchange rate transmission mechanism. Aldemir says reduced borrowing for investment. Any other downsides of increasing interest rates, tightening monetary policy? Fatima says lower business and consumer confidence, which would limit GDP growth. Great point. Bring in animal spirits in that one. Seb says could cause deflation. It could well indeed. It could well. But of course, in the UK context at the moment, that's not the main risk, I guess. Okay. Mario says it makes it harder for people to afford buying a house if they can get a loan, a mortgage. Great points. Let's see what we decided on this one. I think a couple of people hinted that higher interest rates might lead to a currency depreciation, which then makes exports less competitive. And of course, if market interest rates go up, including bond yields, it makes it more expensive for the government to borrow, particularly if they've got a very big budget deficit. Fantastic. Always think about evaluation. Keep working the evaluation skills into your economics and you'll do really well. Back to Penny, I think, for the penultimate activity.
Absolutely. So building exactly on that point, thank you, Jeff, about evaluation. Okay, so it's quite often this is an area that students struggle with. They sort of wonder how to evaluate things sometimes. So if nothing else, I would say it's worth just noting down the 6 approaches that are along the bottom of the screen there. They won't all work in all essays, but you might well be able to pick out 1 or 2 of those for most of the essays that you do. We're going to run this evaluation wheel to try and think of an argument to go with, or an evaluative point to go with this argument. So the argument is a government cut in corporation tax will increase profit levels for businesses, allowing them to employ more workers. Now, how would you evaluate that point? Okay, so think about those 6 areas. One of those is going to come up. It is this. What will that outcome depend on? Okay, so the outcome that we have here is the cut in corporation tax will increase profit levels for businesses, which will lead to, or as a result, this allows them to employ more workers. You can imagine how you might write that up as your analysis. For your evaluation, what might that outcome depend on? Okay, we might have a think in a moment about assumptions that are being made in that statement, but let's have a think about what it depends on. Okay, it depends on the amount of corporation tax, says Anshraj put, and then Aliyah depends on the magnitude of the tax cut. Okay, so there's lots of you going with that idea. Mario says they may simply decide to pocket the extra profit. Yeah, pocket it, pay it out to to shareholders, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of answers coming through. Lots of you suggesting it's to do with the size of the tax cut. Joe says unemployment rates and the scale of the tax cut. Oh, Aliyah, this is an interesting one. Depends on relative to other countries' corporation tax. Possibly, if we're talking about multinational business, that's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
Okay. Couple of ideas that we'd thought of earlier. Let's put those up as suggestions for you. So it depends on the level of the cut. I think that precisely was the area that many of you were talking about. Also, maybe it depends on whether the firms use the saving to employ labour or use it to invest in new technology to replace workers. So we could be talking about some change in the labour to capital ratio as a result of having more money available left after their profits to play with. Of course, what's the assumption? Sorry, Jeff, go on.
Well, I was going to say Bezo came in just before it appears, leaves the screen. He says, depends if the increased profit is spent on hiring more workers as opposed to something like stock buybacks. That's
there you go. Okay, right. It is, isn't it? That's sort of taking the point that we have there, but extending that a bit further. Well done. And Bezo has also just come back with most countries have agreed to a minimum corporation tax of 15%, though. That's right. That was recently signed up to, wasn't it? Although, of course, there are a number of countries still which are going to be undercutting that. But that's kind of taking us into the realm of almost competitive corporation tax, or what's sometimes called the race to the bottom. I'm just wondering here if anyone can think of what's an assumption that we have in that student argument in the first place. The governmental cut in corporation tax will increase profit levels for businesses, allowing them to employ more workers. Maybe what we're assuming there is that there is already some demand out there. There's enough demand out there for their output. So, that's another way that you could have taken the evaluation of that point. Great. As I said, I think it's really useful to note down those 6 different areas on which you can evaluate and take those away with you and see how many of those you can use in your essays that you'll be writing between now and the exams.
Yeah, if you're watching this on the replay, it will be a great, before John comes in and shut the door, a great opportunity to take a screenshot of those 6 factors. I think we're also covering those factors in our live sessions as well, John.
Yes, absolutely. By all means, of course, the video will be available as soon as we've pressed the finish button in a couple of minutes, so people can always go back and have a look at that particular shot there of the different evaluative techniques. Now, we're going to finish, as we always do these sessions, with a shot in the dark question. I fear tonight for Penny and Jeff because the quality of the answers coming from the students have been phenomenal. So I've got a sneaky suspicion that somebody out there is going to get an answer, possibly possibly a little bit closer than our experts who are with us, Jeff and Penny. Now, what we do is we ask Jeff and Penny and the world out there to answer a particular question. It's going to have a numerical answer so that we can get as close to it as possible. Of course, the answer is available on the internet. Please play along in the spirit that it's meant. So don't go looking it up on the internet and posting it on the chat window. Genuinely have a guess. Have an intelligent guess based upon the question I'm about to ask. And Jeff and Penny are going to have the first go at answering this. Here we go. Let's have just a quick look at the question. Let me get that out. Okay, so we all know what the UK's basic rate of income tax is at 20%, one of the lowest in Europe. The highest in Europe is actually in Finland. So do we know what the basic rate of tax in Finland is? Do we know what the basic rate of tax of Finland is? Jeff's nodding his head. I think, Jeff, this may not be a shot in the dark for Jeff. It may not be a shot in the dark. Do you know this one, Jeff?
I'm nodding here because I understand what the question's asking. I'm just trying to think of the answer. This is basic rate, not top rate.
Yes. So if the UK is 20%, what do you think Finland's are on the basis that I've told you that they are the highest in Europe?
And would you like to get first or second?
We're getting some answers coming in. We're getting 25, 26, 27 from Alfie's. Alfie's given all three of those as a suggestion. Joe's gone with 55. That's a Zelaya.
Someone's gone with 50%.
Yes. Yeah, Will's gone with 51.
Penny,
I don't know that I want to go.
Go on then, Jeff. Go on, Jeff.
Go on.
30%.
30% from Jeff.
That's close to where I was going to go, Jeff. So I'm going to have to go for something different now. I'll go higher. How about 37?
37. Well, that's considerably higher, Penny. Let's have another quick look at the chat, just see what's going on there. Ella's gone with 40%. James has gone with 28.5%. Alfie's gone now with 45%. Abu's gone with 35%. Let's have a look at the answer. Put everybody out of their misery. Here we go. The answer is 56.95%. Wow.
I was closest.
You were the closest out of you and Jeff.
But not with the students.
But we definitely, we had somebody on 55 before, didn't we? Which was absolutely superb. Sorry, I didn't write down the person who got 55%. It's a lot, though, isn't it? That's a high amount. But interestingly, we know there's very high levels of happiness and contentment in Finland. When you look at the usual indexes that test those sort of things, so there's probably a relationship between that and the availability of public services. I don't know. I'm supposing.
A couple of other things. I think Finland's a very high income country.
Yeah.
So right up there in terms of GNI per capita, and also they must have a very generous welfare system. I think.
Yeah. Wonderful. I've said we've said several times how good tonight's been, and if I read out the name of everybody who gave us an answer tonight, we'd be here for another half an hour. So apologies for those people I'm about to miss out. But I wrote down Bezo, who answered us first, Reese, Bavia, Mia, Matthew, Jade, Nate, Mario, Harry, Seb, Joe, Tanvir, Shamika, James, Ange, Army Boy came in with a few really good ones, and Kish. Apologies to those people I missed out there because there were so many really good answers. I just couldn't write them down fast enough, as well as play with all the buttons I needed to get going with tonight's presentation. Wonderful stuff. Thank you for all of your contributions. And massive thank you, of course, to Jeff and Penny. Wonderful presentation skills, as always. And thank you for your contributions for setting tonight up. We've got another session next week. We're talking about wage determination next week. So another topic that we know is being covered by the awarding bodies in terms of stuff that will be on their exams. Don't forget you can download the presentation that we've been using in a few moments time, and of course you can watch the video all over again. So until this time next week, it's a goodbye from us. Goodbye everybody.
Take care.
Bye.